Well, welcome to another taste of working the light. It wouldn't take long for any of us to grow paranoid if we thought that we're constantly being stalked. That sense of foreboding would slowly wear us down and steal our joy. Well, there's an elderly rabbi whose name is Zalman Schachter Shalom, who says that David reveals in Psalm 23 that he's being stalked. But instead of reacting in fear and paranoia, David is delighted and confident because it's God's goodness and mercy that's following him wherever he goes. David is absolutely convinced that his shepherd is stalking him with goodness and mercy. In fact, he says, they will follow me all the days of my life. So let's talk about these two. Let's talk about goodness. Goodness means so much more than nice acts, like a Boy Scout helping someone with their groceries or maybe helping a little old lady across the street. It has to do with providing something that's beneficial for someone. David is aware that the Lord, his shepherd, is constantly on the lookout to provide for his welfare. God's not only David's shepherd, he's David's constant benefactor. And what about mercy? Well, God's mercy is also following close after David. It's God's intention not to default to fault finding when David strays from the righteous path, but to default to fault correcting. It's kind of like a coach who provides a batting coach instead of benching a ball player who's going through a batting slump. The Lord, our shepherd, is more interested in correcting and growing us spiritually than catching us and punishing us for failing again. The fear of making a mistake is replaced with the confidence that God's mercy will lovingly chasten and correct us until we look more and more and act more and more like his son, Jesus. So, are goodness and mercy values of your leadership? Good question. Listen to this story from one of our groups. A chief officer at a large bank here in Chicago pushed back on the idea of mercy. He felt that he hired people to perform and not to make mistakes. We all understood that. The following week, he wanted to talk to the group before we started. We had no idea where this was going. He went on to share how the bank's accountant had made a serious miscalculation, and they end up reporting to the government and to shareholders that the bank could loan more than they had assets to do so. As a result, the bank was thrown into emergency mode. They had to make amended forms to be sent out to the government, and worse yet, they had to create an embarrassing letter that was to be sent to investors explaining their incredible mistake. After the chaos of that day was over, the executive made a confession to the group. He said he probably would have done this anyway, but because of our conversation about mercy, he called the accountant responsible for the mistake into his office. He invited the man to close the door and have a seat, and the bank executive went on to tell our group what happened next. He told us that he told the accountant that what he had done was a mistake and could never happen again. But it was a mistake, and his confidence in the accountant was not diminished. He was an excellent accountant who had worked hard and accurately for the bank for years, and he was confident that the accountant would do so for years to come. But he wanted the accountant to know a couple things. First, his job was not in jeopardy, and neither was his upcoming year-end bonus, and that he knew that what happened was a mistake, but he wanted that accountant to know that it couldn't happen again. Well, the executive said the accountant had tears tracing across his cheeks as he thanked the executive. We had a few tears in our group as well. Each executive in the group knew what that conversation meant to the employee and what it was about to mean to the culture of the bank as everyone discovered what that conversation was about. So, mistakes wouldn't have to be hidden anymore. The default mode was to fixing and not condemning. So, here's the question. Are goodness and mercy values of your leadership? How about in your personal life? And I want you to think about it. And until we get together again, stalk somebody with goodness and mercy and work in the light.